3, test 1, 2.
Call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. This meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the Northern Lehigh School District Media YouTube channel. We'll have, if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Husak, will you do roll call?
Yes, I will. Do I have to approve it? Mr. Disler.
Here.
Mr. Green. Here. Ms. Heckman. Here. Ms. Husak. Here. Mr. Keegan.
Here.
Mr. Kern. Ms. Culp.
Here.
Ms. Martineau.
Here.
Mr. Fedorcha. We have a quorum.
Civility and decorum. District officials and members of the public are expected to conduct themselves with civility and to afford each other a measure of dignity and respect. Shouting, personal insults, and attacks or any conduct that disrupts the flow of business is considered to be out of order. Members of the public are to direct those comments to the board in its entirety, cannot single out board members for response, nor can a member of the public address specific issues with other members of the community who may be present at the meeting or who are virtually present if it is a virtual or hybrid meeting. In addition, members of the community shall not bring signs or placards to the meeting and shall not applaud or engage in any actions that would impede another community member's right to make comments at the meeting. At the discretion of the board president, individuals who are disruptive shall be subject to removal from the venue of the board meeting unless a disruptive individual agrees to maintain civility and decorum. As per board policy number 903, all participants will be provided a period of 5 minutes for each public participation. Public comment on an agenda item will be recognized now. Public comment not on the agenda will be recognized at the end of the meeting. Do we have any public comment?
Looks like Mr. Chrisman has a maybe for agenda items. Would you like to speak, sir?
I'd like to defer my 5 minutes to the end, please.
Yes, sir, thank you. That is the only one that had a notation that they would like to speak on an agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Mr. King has noted he would like to speak on ESSER funding.
I would also, after the update, if that's all right, can I go at the end
Yes,
after we hear the update?
yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
I would need a motion to approve the minutes from the September 13th meeting.
So
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go into our special board reports. Mrs. Husak.
No report this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Fedorcha is absent, and Mrs. Heckman.
There is also no report this evening.
Thank you. And then, last but not least, Mr. Green.
No report.
Well, isn't that nice? Okay. Committee reports and meetings are attached. We will move on to our student representatives, Ms. Paige Craddock and Ms. Danielle Dougherty.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start off with the sports because a lot of it is about homecoming, and yeah. So from what I have gathered from because Mr. Geist didn't get back to me, so I just asked around everybody, so I'm not exactly sure on the records, but so far, field hockey is 6-8, and tonight is their senior night, so if anybody can pop in afterwards and support them, that'd be really great. Football is 4-3. Our girls soccer, we just won tonight, 10-0. We are 11-5. And then boys soccer is 0-6. To start homecoming, Hallway decorating occurred from October 4th until tonight. Today's the last day for that. The winner of the competition will be announced at the pep rally. There's going to be prizes depending on like who's first, last, different, you know. Homecoming Spirit Week is 8th through 15th, so each day it's like pajama day, jersey, Hawaiian, preppy day, and blue light day. And just because I know a lot of kids weren't sure on preppy day, it's just like, you know, you wear like a baseball cap, an oversized like t-shirt. It's just, you know, like a college thing.
Sounds like the 80s.
The bonfire will be on the 14th. I just want to say a big shout out to Chaz's mom for donating wood. That is very big for us, so thank you. Setup will be at 5, and the event begins at 6. It should be over around 8. There are 6 businesses coming and 4 clubs so far. Head coaches for the fall sports will announce their teams. They'll be introduced. You know, just be nice for the teams. Pep rally will be during block 4 on the Friday, 15th. Cheerleaders usually run it. The prep rally will be held at the stadium so we can, you know, take off the masks, breathe a little bit. And during this, the court will be announced. Also, the name of our new Bulldog mascot will also be announced. Thank you to Mr. Barnes and the Slate. The parade will be, again, that Friday at 6 p.m. There will be like a bunch of different organizations from the community in it. The parade route goes from Rensselaers to the Bulldog Stadium. That is it for me, and I will pass it off to Danielle.
Thank you, Paige.
Hello, everyone. So I just have more stuff about homecoming, specifically the game. The football game, it'll begin at 7 p.m. against Penn Argyle on October 15th. At halftime, the king and queen of the homecoming court will be crowned. Our 2020 king and queen, Julia Wanamaker and Joey Abadelli, we've been in contact with them, and they'll be crowning this year's king and queen as well as attending the dance. Student council is selling extra homecoming shirts at the game, so we'll have like our little tent and be selling for whatever we have left over. Also, student council members are collecting money at the game for the Susan G. Komen Fund, so if you end up being there, be sure to donate. The homecoming dance is on Saturday, October 16th. It's going to be from 4 to 7, so not the traditional like 7 to 10, just so that we can be outside at the stadium, make sure that there's lights outside. Masks are optional, so you can breathe and not wear your mask while you're outside at the dance. Student council, we've gotten 2 tents as well as a large dance floor in hopes of making this dance really nice since we haven't had one since 2019, our homecoming dance. And we are also hoping to have the dance rain or shine with the tents that we have. Besides homecoming, the SAD Red Ribbon Week is going to be from October 25th to October 29th. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Danielle.
Yeah.
Thank you, girls.
Thank you so much.
Student council is also going to give a report.
Is there a, do you want me to read that? Student council update?
Yes, please.
Good to see everybody again. It's great to be back. You already know my student council president, Paige Craddock, my secretary, Danielle. We also have our treasurer, Maddie Mack, and we have one of our junior council members with us, Aisha Salih. So this is going to be a year of kind of coming back together. Last year, student council was very active, but we also had to really adapt things for the times. And I think we were successful overall, but we're hoping to kind of get back into some of the things that were, you know, by necessity fell by the wayside last year. So we're working with the Marines in Allentown for Toys for Tots again. We will also be working with the Freedom's Church for the Adopt a Family program that they have as well. Our holiday season every year is all about charity, giving back to the community. It's one of the most important times a year for our students as well as the community. So we're really looking forward to getting back into that this year. We know that a lot of people are hurting right now, and we want to do the best we can to help them. In addition to that, over the holiday season, hopefully we can get back to Peters Elementary and act as teachers' aides again one day before holiday break. So that's going to be our big thing as well. A little bit closer, in 2 weeks, on October 21st, that's a Thursday, we're going to have our blood drive We have it twice a year. This is the fall drive with Miller Keystone. It's going to be again at the gymnasium over at the high school from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock. If anyone is interested in donating, you can go to giveapint.org and donate or sign up, pre-register digitally, and they'll get you into their system. I know that supplies are limited right now. Certainly blood is at a premium right now as well. So they are asking for people to sign up in advance. Normally we welcome walk-ins, and I can't see them really turning anyone away. But at the same time, because of their supply limitations, they do ask that people pre-register. So that's going to be another one coming up. We'll have another blood drive in April as well, right around the same time as our Mr. Northern Lehigh competition, which we'll be having again this year. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sander. And anything else from any of our student representatives this evening? No? I know that there is a senior recognition going on in the stadium. You are welcome to stay here if you choose, but we also understand if you want to head over to the stadium to support your classmates. Thank you. Or do schoolwork. You're welcome.
We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Good job tonight.
Thank you.
Have fun.
We will move on to our solicitor's report. Attorney Roddick?
Yes, very briefly, I just wanted to report on a new case that came down from the Middle District of Pennsylvania. The court denied a motion for an injunction to not enforce a mask mandate. Parents argued that they have a 14th Amendment constitutional right to raise their children as they see fit. The court agreed, but determined that that right was not unlimited, and parents can't interfere with the government's public health efforts during a global pandemic. They argued that the mask order violates their students' property's rights to public education, and the court disagreed. The mask mandate does not prevent students from attending school. Parents argued that it violates their due process rights. The court disagreed. They said that where there is a valid state order, such as the Department of Health's, there's no requirement for school districts to hold a public meeting to obtain input on whether or not to consider following the law. And the parents argued that the mask mandate violates students' rights to association under the First Amendment, and the court said no, the mask mandate doesn't limit or prevent students from gathering or associating with each other. So that was supposed to come down in the middle of September. It did get deferred, so the court issued that decision on September 30th.
Thank you.
We will move on to our Assistant Superintendent's report. Dr. Stoker.
Thank you. This evening I have two reports. One is on the ESSER grant update and the other is on our PA Future Ready Index preview. Out at the main table and then at the board members' places is some information on the ESSER grants through September 30th of 2021. In an effort to keep stakeholders informed about our ESSER grants, we continue to take feedback from individuals and groups through various committees and report on spending each month at board meetings. Since last report, we have resubmitted both the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 grants as per change requests from PDE, and also to provide more detail on how we are using the funds. As of last month, our allocations for ESSER 2 and 3 totaled $4.4 million. As per the e-grant system, more recently, our ESSER 2 allocation has decreased by $4,000, and our ESSER 3 allocation has increased from about $2,000, which has changed our learning loss requirement to $590,156. Overall, this is a $2,080 decrease in our ESSER grants. PDE has not yet provided an explanation as to why these values have changed. To date, we have $9,649 in the ESSER 2 grant and $473,226 in the ESSER 3 grant that is still undetermined as far as spending. We have until September 30th of 2023 and 2024, respectively, to spend the monies. Additionally, last month we reported that we received an ESSER 3B allocation of $229,342. We are continuing to determine how that grant will be spent in the areas of learning loss, social, emotional, mental health supports for staff and students, after-school programs, and summer enrichment. That grant must be submitted by the end of November, but we are hoping to finalize that by the end of October if possible. More detailed information on our ESSER grants can be found in the PowerPoint presentations that are posted each month on the webpage, on my webpage on the NLSD website. This presentation will also be posted there tomorrow for everyone's reference. The second report I have this evening is the PA Future Ready Index. During the Future Ready PA Index preview that was recently released to district administration, we reviewed rates of regular attendance, career standards benchmark, and graduation data. Regular attendance is calculated for any student who is enrolled for 90 or more school days, and students who were present for 90% of those days that they were enrolled are considered to have attended regularly. At Northern Lehigh, all of our schools were in the blue, which means that we exceeded statewide goal, or in the green, which means that we either met the statewide or interim target for the overall population. Peters had a 92.4%, Slatington had a 94.4%, the middle school had 93.4%, and the high school had 87.8% for regular attendance. The Career Standards benchmark is based upon the number of students who have submitted the required pieces of evidence of college and career evidence that our students work on in their classes K through 12. That evidence is collected in grade bands and reported in grades 5, 8, and 11. I'm happy to report that again, our schools were in the blue or green for this measure, with Slatington at 100%, the middle school at 99.1, and the high school at 98.2. The last indicator that I'm going to discuss is graduation. This is defined by the number of students in the cohort who graduated with a high school diploma. And when we say cohort, the students who come in 9th grade, that they would graduate in 4 years from the time that they enter 9th grade. At the high school, 91.1% of our students graduated in 4 years. While overall scores were very positive, there were some concerns in the data at the high school level for some of our subgroups with regard to attendance, career standards, and graduation. Specifically, our economically disadvantaged students, students with IEPs, and Hispanic students scored lower. We will be diving deeper into that data at the individual level to determine the appropriate action to take to improve those scores. Results discussed here tonight will become public through the Future Ready PA Index site soon, and then will be shared out again in more detail when we do our annual data presentation for the board and public later this school year. The date on that is still undetermined based upon the release of the rest of the data. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no business manager's report tonight. We move on to our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Disler. I would like to turn over the beginning of my report to Mrs. Alyssa Wigginfield to discuss a potential middle school kitchen renovation project. Mrs. Wigginfield is from the McClure Company, who you may recall has done previous energy savings work and renovations in the school district over the last 2 to 3 years. Mrs. Wigginfield?
Thank you, Mr. Link. Hi, everyone. I'm Alyssa. I'm an engineer with McClure Company. I've been with them for almost 15 years. Thank you for having me this evening. As always, my presentation is informal, so if you have questions throughout, flag me down, or feel free to wait till the end. So if you'd like to turn to slide 2 in the presentation in front of you. Quick background about McClure for anyone that's new. We are a 68-year-old construction firm. We are headquartered in Harrisburg, PA, and we specialize in K through 12 energy projects. So in those projects, we have to guarantee a return on investment in 2 separate ways. First, we have to guarantee project costs, meaning no change orders. Any errors or omissions by our engineers are responsibility of McClure. Second, we have to guarantee the performance or the energy savings. Any shortfall, McClure is responsible for the difference. As Mr. Linka says, we have worked with the district in the past. You can see the history on the right-hand side of the slide. We've done lighting, HVAC projects, roofing projects, and most recently, the high school science classroom renovation. So tonight, if you turn to slide 3, we're going to talk about the middle school kitchen upgrades for your consideration. This conversation started over the summer where we kicked off the meeting, we walked through the kitchen with the kitchen staff, the administration, and really got a first-hand look at some of the challenges of the middle school kitchen. We've since then done engineering surveys and also met with administration to review designs. What we saw during those walkthroughs and through those interviews with your staff is that the existing equipment is at end of life. Some of the kitchen food service equipment is original to the building, so like 1950 vintage. We also saw the HVAC equipment. It was the only kitchen in the district that HVAC system has not been addressed. So it's over close to 30 years old and in need of replacement. We also met with the district to discuss the desire to use Escrow funding for this project and use this project to find ways to space staff better so that they have more room and can spread apart to help mitigate the risk of COVID-19 spread. Other goals of this project is to really update the food service equipment and the HVAC systems. We want to look at reconfigure the serving lines to improve the flow. We want to improve the space functionality where we can, and if it was financially viable, do cosmetic upgrades. So if you turn to slide 4, we'll go over 3 options for your consideration tonight. Option 1 is the lowest cost option. It's one side of the bookend. Option 3 will be the most expensive, and then option 2 is somewhere in between. So the first option is upgrading the kitchen food service equipment. So really taking a look at any kitchen equipment that's at end of life. If the equipment isn't used by the kitchen staff, we do not recommend replacing it. So things like potato peelers, mixers, steam equipment, all do not need replaced. And then working with your staff to come up with what the new equipment should be based on usage. Worth noting, it's a new walk-in cooler. That cooler is original to the building as a wooden door. We're recommending replacing it, putting in a higher ceiling so that they have more storage space for refrigerated items. Also, adding new countertop displays at each of the point-of-sale stations. So areas that you see in blue on the floor plan show that space will get some new equipment, including a new dishwasher. Questions on that? Okay, if you turn to slide 5, option 2 is kind of the middle of the road option. So everything we just talked about in option 1, so brand new food service equipment, and this option adds HVAC upgrades. So we recommend air conditioning this kitchen. Currently it's heating only. Staff say it doesn't really heat in the wintertime very well. They're wearing coats, it becomes a safety concern. It also has no cooling. So the space you see in green, all those spaces will get air conditioning, and the spaces you see red, that heating only equipment that existing there now is in good shape, so we just recommend recommissioning those with new controls so that they can work more effectively. I also recommend installing a new makeup air unit to provide fresh air to the space and replace 2 kitchen hood fans. Recommend in this option to reconfigure the serving line and add new concession windows, and then also just do some minor cosmetic upgrades where we're addressing any of the systems, and new ceiling on the right-hand side of the floor plan where you see dishwashing. Any questions on that? Okay, the third option, this is the other end of the spectrum. This is a full renovation of the middle school kitchen, including a reconfiguration. So reconfiguring a serving line, everything we talked about in 1 and 2, but then also removing the bathroom, putting in a new storage space, moving the washer and dryer out of the office, adding some lock areas and making that a true office, and then a full cosmetic upgrade of the flooring, paint, and ceilings. So those 3 options, if you turn to slide 7, are now shown on the table for the project financials. So these project financials, I will say, are budgets at this point, and they are completely turnkey. So this includes all the engineering, permits, construction, and final commissioning and training. So in the first option, you're looking at a project around $336,000 to do just kitchen upgrades, or kitchen equipment upgrades, excuse me. If you look at option 2, this is adding in the HVAC systems, the reconfiguring of the serving line, adding up concession windows. That we're showing a range of $531,000 to $759,000. The reason we show a range is right now the construction market for HVAC is very volatile, so we wanted to give you a little safety range for today's planning purposes. And then the third option, if you would do a full renovation, is $931,000. So if you turn to slide 8, kind of the next step with this project, if these numbers and this scope of work makes sense to you, and you want to move to the next step, there's specific rules when it comes to federal grant funds and doing energy projects. So there's basically 4 rules. One, you have to go out for requests for proposals. You have to take competitive responses, and those responses have to contain a cost component. When you get those responses, you also need a written scoring matrix to score the candidates, but those projects can be awarded on best value, not necessarily low bid. So those are all federal rules as they apply to general guaranteed energy savings agreements or energy projects. So what we recommend for next steps is over the next month and a half, you go out for requests for proposals. You would get the responses back, you would grade them, and then you would award them at your December 6th meeting. And why that's important is because kitchen equipment and HVAC equipment have extremely long lead times, some are over 20 weeks. So the sooner you can get that project approved and the contract executed, you can then procure that major equipment and make sure it is on site between the construction window of June 2022 and August 2022. So at this point, I'll hit pause and answer any questions you may have.
Just, if I can just get my head around this for a second, please. I'm looking at the ESSER grant spending, and this would be totally ESSER's money? Okay, and,
Correct.
hi down there.
That is correct.
This would be total ESSER's money, and which number do you have currently in here, if I may?
We currently have up to $750,000 in ESSER 2.
The second one?
Yes,
Okay, so you have what, 759?
750.
750?
Do we have
Okay.
759, Terry?
It's just over 7.
Just over 7, okay.
That's a pretty large range. Are you basing that on current projects that you have, or, I mean, that's a $200,000 range.
Yes, it's based on current construction projects. Since we met last Wednesday, we did go back and redesign some things, and we do think we can beat the median to lower end of that range. One of the things we took out is replacing heating-only equipment. It still has a little bit of life left in those systems, and just recommissioning it. So we're trying to make subtle changes to get you back to that lower to median end of the range. But it wasn't until we can put final pricing to it that we can get you a pinpoint average.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
You were saying a little bit of life. Does that mean that we're gonna have to be replacing them in the near future anyway?
No, they will probably last 30 to 50 years. They're from the 1990s. They're just a coil is really all they are. So we expect those to have a little bit longer life than a traditional
Okay, thank you.
piece of equipment. Yeah, great question.
Do any other board members have any questions?
I do have a question. In any of the current project schedules that we have, you know, some of our ongoing capital projects, is the middle school HVAC appear in the next, like, is that on a schedule anywhere? Because,
I can answer that one.
Yeah.
So the middle school HVAC was addressed in 2018. The kitchen was taken out of that design. So the majority of the middle school is brand new. It was just the kitchen that wasn't done back in 2018.
that's what I thought.
I will say also, I forgot to mention, the new equipment will also have bipolar ionization that will be transferred over, and then any equipment that is brand new that doesn't have it will get it.
Anyone else?
So
Okay.
this will be agenda item J under financials section of the agenda this evening.
All right?
Yep.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Up next, I'd like to give the board an opportunity to ask any questions or provide any feedback on the proposed district goals for the 2021-2022 school year. They are in your packet, and they were shared out with you as a draft at the end of last week. If you're familiar with the SMART goal template, we've been using that goal template for since 2018. And at the bottom of each goal, is the actual proposed goal. So some of these will look very similar to last year, things like ongoing professional development, ongoing work towards culture and climate, and some of them are more granular this year when it comes to things like the use of technology for instructional purposes, and as well as achievement and growth. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on these as well. These are also on the agenda this evening under, I believe they're the only agenda item under new business.
Anything else, Mr. Lee?
Just an opportunity if anybody wants to respond. I know they've seen them.
Any questions from the board members?
I just have a question. We talked before about the student scores and so forth.
Will that be addressed in the first goal that's here as far as?
Yes, that'll be under achievement and growth, and we're hoping to be able to present on the outcome from last year. However, the state has not released all the data yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay.
Okay. Then that concludes my superintendent's report this evening, Mr. Disler. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Link.
You're welcome.
An executive session was held at 6:30 PM for personnel and legal issues. I will need a motion to approve the personnel items A to J. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Or is there a discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Disler, if I may, I would just like to acknowledge Mrs. Maria Van Norman this evening for her years of service as a teacher here at our high school. She has been an integral part of our English Language Arts department at the high school, and was also one of the key players in getting the CFES essential skills curriculum and work off the ground 2 years ago. So we wish her the best moving forward in her retirement. Thank you.
Yes. I will need a motion to approve the policy items A and B.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Conferences. Motion to approve conferences items A through E. I will need a motion to approve the conferences items A to E.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We need a motion to approve the curriculum and instructions items A and B. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there any old business?
No, sir.
I will need a motion to approve the new business item. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Financials, I would need a motion to approve the financial items A to J. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a quick question, Mr. Disler.
Go ahead.
On J, that is just the proposal to ask for a request, correct?
Correct. So the agenda item this evening is to approve administration to move forward with posting a request for proposals. So contractors and outside companies can put in their best guess at doing the kitchen middle school project. Once those are all in and reviewed, we will make a administration will make a report back to the school board as to whether they want to approve the project with that contractor and move forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Legal, I would need a motion to approve the legal item. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. At this time, we will have recognition of guests. Do we have any public comments on the non-agenda items?
We have Mr. Chrisman indicating that he would like to comment on a non-agenda item.
Mr. Chrisman.
Evening, ladies and gents.
Good evening.
Chad Chrisman, Route 873, Slatington. There's a couple of agenda items here and non-agenda items. I'll try to not go back and forth as much as possible. I'll try to keep it short and sweet as much as possible as well. In the very beginning of the meeting, you had recited a line that I've become familiar with in making sure that we maintain decency and civility towards each other. And I respect that and extend that. However, how the meeting ended last time did not feel like that was reciprocated towards us parents who still had questions. And you guys, when I say you guys, I meant as a whole, not individual, not trying to violate, abruptly ended the meeting while there were still questions and concerns about the legality of the orders. Now, understand in the very beginning you gave your report about how the courts have deemed that is constitutional for these masking orders and mandates. But those are still not definite answers yet, and they're still pending legal action. And I'd also like to remind y'all, last year during the height of the pandemic, there were multiple lawsuits filed against the state and the Department of Health and Governor Tom Wolf on behalf of Taste of Sicily and Seven Sirens. They sued the state and they won. Every single one of their cases, fines and warnings and threats, were dismissed. Every single one of them. Not a single dollar, not a single fine, not a single injuncture, anything. They stayed open. They refused to close. They defied everything the governor ordered them to do because it is indeed an unlawful order. I understand that's up to interpretation depending on what judge and what jurisdiction you ask. I understand that. And I don't envy you guys because it puts you guys in a tough spot because you guys are under extremely pressurous situations between teacher unions, threatening letters from the Department of Health, Department of State. We understand that. It's a very sticky situation to be in. We just want you guys to stand up for us. Do what's right. Also, in regards to our current school district policies with exposures, it seems there's a lot of confusion and it almost seems to vary school to school and case by case. There's been instances where you get an exposure within 5 days. If you're symptom free, you get a negative test, you can return. But if you're an exposure to a close family member, now you've got to add another 10 to 14 days on top of that. You could have a child who was positive completely recovered, goes back to school before a person who's exposed within the household. This stuff doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense at all. Some clarification on the exact procedure would be great. Also, in regards to the recent proposal, the kitchen update that we want to do here in the middle school, I'm all for updating, remodeling, coming to the turning of the century. I'm all for it. I love it. However, we're currently serving our kids Domino's and Subway. How is renovating a kitchen that's
30 seconds.
barely being used going to help these kids get an actual meal versus Domino's and Subway? I just think there needs to be a little bit more discussion about that and how we're handling that versus
15 seconds.
current situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker to sign up this evening is Mr. Eric King. And he had indicated that he would like to speak on Escrow Funding.
Yes, that's all right.
Sure.
Good evening. So, I forget exactly which meeting it was during the spring, but we spent an unbelievable amount of time discussing water bottles during the Escrow Funding grants. And bubbler machines to fill these water bottles. We're now halfway through, if not further, through the first marking period of the school year, and I was curious if there is any update with that, what the status is. As we all know, one of the main reasons school boards are dismissive about defying the governor's mandates and so forth about masks is because they're afraid they're going to lose funding for things. Here now we have the funding, we were promised water bottles. Our kids are still told to bring their own water bottles into school every day. We're stuck with the mask mandates, and where did that money go for water bottles and bubble stations to fill these water bottles? We have no updates, we haven't heard anything about that going forward. Meanwhile, our kids are stuck wearing masks because you guys are scared of losing the funding. That's all I had. I was curious if somebody had any kind of explanation as to what happened with that or what the status of that is.
May Mr. Link answer your question?
Sure. So initially, when we were looking at water bottles, they were going to be close to $20,000 for children K to 12. We are looking for other vendors to provide a different type of water bottle.
Okay.
So we can use that money for water bottles, but also have money to put towards other projects.
I know this, it was like an hour-long discussion. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen about this. I forget what month it was, but.
Water bubblers and faucets, I remember well.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I was just curious what the update was on that, where we're at. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all that is signed up to speak in person this evening. We do have one submission via the NLSD for you email address for a public comment, and I will ask our school board secretary, Mrs. Husak, to read that.
Thank you, Mr. Link.
You're welcome.
We did receive an email from Justin Jackowitz at 6465 Woodbury Drive, Slatington, PA 18080, today, Monday, October 11th at 10:43 a.m. My name is Justin Jackowitz, and I live at 6465 Woodbury Drive in Slatington. Another month goes by, and our school board and superintendent are still discriminating against the public and not allowing maskless speakers into the meeting. The rest of the state continues on with life while people attend fall festivals, amusement parks, high school sporting events, college and professional games with 50,000 plus fans, but we cannot have a group of 50 people sit in a large auditorium without masks. Absolutely absurd. I emailed Mr. Link and our school board on October 1st with these specific questions. Where are the studies, data, and evidence to show masks, specifically cloth masks, prevent the spread of COVID-19? Where are the studies, data, and evidence to show that COVID-19 spreads through schools, including data from the PA Department of Health contact tracing? These are questions I have asked since the beginning of the pandemic and have not received any response or attempts at responses from Mr. Link or anyone on the school board. Now that we are back to bowing to King, I mean Governor Wolf, and I have implemented his rogue Department of Health mandate, I have asked additional questions. What quantitative metric needs to be achieved for masks to be optional at Northern Lehigh School District? Where is the data that shows masks are working to prevent the spread of COVID-19 since being implemented on September 7th, 2021, compared to being mask optional Prior to that point, how long will you force students to miss in-person education for 10 to 20 days in a row when there is no state of emergency or quarantine requirement anywhere else in the state of Pennsylvania? How long will Northern Lehigh School District waste countless hours of manpower from high-level administrators and school nurses to conduct contact tracing within the school when it's not the responsibility or expertise of these people to do so? Since I have not received even acknowledgement of any of my email from anyone, please answer these questions in front of the public. It is the job of Mr. Link and the school board to respond to the questions from the public, and if they do not do so in a timely fashion, they can be petitioned to be removed from their positions in a court of law. Please confirm that since email was received and will be read at the meeting tonight. Justin Jackowitz.
Sure, if it's the will of the board, I can respond to these questions this evening.
Would the board like to have Mr. Link? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Link.
Sure. The first question, where are the studies, data, and evidence to show masks, specifically cloth masks, prevent the spread of COVID-19? That information has been asked and answered. It's been in the NLSD board-approved health and safety plan since approved earlier this year. It's in the FAQ links within that plan. Where are the studies, data, and evidence to show that the COVID-19 spreads through schools, including data from the PA Department of Health contact tracing? Again, same answer. They are within the FAQ links of the approved NLSD health and safety plan. What quantitative metric needs to be achieved for masks to be optional at NLSD? There is no quantitative metric. It is an order which we are bound to uphold. It will only be considered to remove it when the order is lifted. Where's the data that shows masks are working to prevent the spread of COVID-19 since being implemented on 9/7/2021 compared to being mask optional prior to that point? All district-wide data is reported on the district website. It is updated at the end of each day, usually between 3:30 and 4:30 p.m. How long will you force students to miss in-person education for the 10 to 20 days in a row when there is no state of emergency or quarantine requirement anywhere else in the state of Pennsylvania? Again, as long as the NLSD health and safety plan is in place and those timelines are scripted in that plan. How long will NLSD waste countless hours of manpower from high-level administrators and school nurses to conduct contact tracing within the school when it's not the responsibility or expertise of those people to do so? Again, as long as the NLSD health and safety plan is in place. And that concludes my answers.
Thank you, Mr. Link.
You're welcome. There are no other public comments this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any other items from the board?
I have something.
Go ahead.
Mr. Link, can you explain what a right-to-know request is?
May I explain? Is that
Like in
okay?
2 sentences, just explain what a right-to-know
Sure.
request
A
is.
right-to-know request falls under, when a community member, or actually anyone, it doesn't have to be a community member, sends in a request to our right-to-know officer, which is myself, for information related to school district operations, communications, budgeting, anything like that. We have to consider that request. We have to respond in 5 days, whether we need additional time to consider that request, which is an additional 30 days. I will defer to our solicitor in a minute. An additional 30 days added on to the end of the original 5. We have to let the requester know whether we're going to provide that information or not, what the cost is if we choose to charge the requester, and then to provide that information. A no response means that we are declining the requester's request for information.
Thank you.
And I'll just pause for a second and defer to our Attorney Roddick to see if I missed any key points.
No, you hit the key points, and if we do deny that request, and our denials need to be based upon the Pennsylvania Right to Know Act, which sets forth exceptions. Pretty much the default is everything is producible unless it falls within certain enumerated exceptions in the Right to Know law. So if we would deny a request based upon our interpretation of the law, then the requester has the ability to appeal to the Office of Open Records, and they will then review the request, review our response, and make a decision. And if they determine that we need to produce it or not produce it, either party then can appeal that decision to the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court.
I have a question. It's my understanding, tell me if I'm wrong. It refers to documentation that exists. It does not refer to administration or anyone within the district creating documents of data based on questions about information that is not already documented.
You are correct.
Okay.
Mr. Link, when you say costs, what are things that are considered the costs of it, and who is responsible for that?
So the actual cost is the cost of the actual paper. I believe we are allowed to charge even for costs such as like ink cartridges and things like that, but I'll defer to our solicitor. So historically here in Northern Lehigh School District, and as long as I've been here, we have not charged anyone who has requested for a right to know information or documents any of those costs. So that's the actual monetary cost. Some of them, we can have the information made readily available within the initial 5 days. Some of them will take 35 days, depending on the volume of information that is requested and the people that we have or do not have available to gather and organize that information and then review that information.
Mr. Link, what was the most recent right to know request that we received?
The most recent right to know request came in a little over a month ago from a Mr. Justin Jakovitz.
Is that the same Justin Jackowitz that submitted the letter that Secretary?
I believe so, yes it is.
Okay. How long did it take for us to respond to that request? Ballpark it.
I'd have to go back and check my notes. I believe my administrative assistant, it was close to 15 hours. I believe Mr. Hill, it was close to 4 hours, and then my work directly involved with it was 8 hours. And then from there, we had one of our legal representatives, one of our attorneys from the King Spry Law Firm, also review for any redactation that needed to occur.
Okay. So
We did not charge him anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Jackowitz.
So you, Mr. Hill, one attorney, sorry, who else did you list? That's 3 people.
My administrative assistant, Mrs. Wagner.
Okay. What would you say, I'm sorry, you listed a bunch of different hours. What would you say is the total amount of hours that you spent, you being the collective you, on that request?
27.
And what would you say is the estimated cost of fulfilling that request?
The actual cost is the cost of the paper. So we did have to produce paper.
I mean the manpower
To
cost.
go, the manpower cost would be the amount of hours for each of those individuals times their salary and benefits rate per hour.
So what would you just estimate, like an approximate estimate? What do you think?
I'm not comfortable making an estimate on that until I actually sat down and figured it out.
Okay, and we did not charge anything for that request?
That's correct.
And how many pages did that request end up being when it was finally printed? What was the total amount of pages that were provided?
The initial bundle of paper, I'm going to say, was probably 2,500 to 3,000 pages. Through that, the ones that we were able to work down that actually fell within the parameters of the request, minus any redactions that needed to occur, I believe was around 1,400 pages.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Link,
Yes.
sorry, could you address the allegation that you haven't responded to any of these, acknowledged any of these emails? That's not what I know you to be like, so I was curious as to why.
Any questions that were not answered, I would answer. If they've been previously answered, I would not respond again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Link, for that. Are there any other questions? At this time,
While you're on recognition of guests, Mr. President, I see a guest over there in aisle one who I haven't seen for about 2 years. I believe that's Mr. Arner from the Times News. Welcome back.
yes, welcome back.
I just want to recognize the guest the other way, so.
Have you anything to say, Mr. Honor? Good. If not, I will need a motion to adjourn the board meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned at 7:57.
7.